You stand in the shadowed sanctum of Ishtar's temple in ancient Babylon, the air thick with the acrid tang of incense blended with the metallic bite of blood and the musky reek of sweat-soaked flesh. Your bare feet slipping on stone floors slick with semen and ritual oils that pool like dark omens under the flickering torchlight. Around you, bodies writhe in a frenzied tangle of limbs, priestesses with skin scarred by sacred blades arching their backs as strangers thrust into them with guttural grunts, their eyes glazed in a hollow mimicry of divine ecstasy, while the goddess's colossal idol looms above, its lapis lazuli eyes indifferent to the enforced carnality below, demanding this grotesque fusion of piety and violation to appease her insatiable hunger for fertility's brutal toll. This visceral scene is no fevered hallucination, but the stark reality of ancient Babylon's temple rites, where sexuality was weaponized in the service of the divine, twisting personal autonomy into a sacrificial offering on the altar of cosmic order. As the haze clears from this immersive plunge, history's veil lifts to expose the raw undercurrents of Mesopotamian devotion, where gods and mortals collided in acts that blurred worship with debasement, power with humiliation. Nestled between the life-giving Tigris and Euphrates, the Babylonian Empire flourished as a cradle of civilization, its ziggurats piercing the sky like defiant fingers challenging the heavens. Yet beneath this grandeur lurked practices that fused the sacred with the profane in shocking intimacy. These were not voluntary indulgences, but obligatory rituals, scripted by priests and enforced by kings, where the body's most intimate functions became public spectacles to ensure bountiful harvests, victorious wars, and the perpetuation of royal lineages. Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. At the heart of these revelations stood Ishtar, the multifaceted goddess of love, war, and fertility, known earlier to the Sumerians as Inanna, whose temples serve as epicenters for rituals that plunge devotees into a maelstrom of sensory overload and psychological fracture. Constructed from sun-baked bricks towering in stepped pyramids adorned with glazed tiles depicting lions and dragons in vivid blues and golds, these sanctuaries exuded an aura of divine majesty. Yet within their walls, the air hung heavy with the pungent odors of burning myrrh masking the underlying stench of bodily fluids, where women from every stratum of society were drawn into acts that commodified their flesh for spiritual ends. The Greek historian Herodotus, chronicling in the 5th century before the Common Era, unveiled one of the most notorious customs in his histories, declaring with a tone of appalled fascination. The foulest Babylonian custom is that which compels every woman of the land to sit in the temple of Aphrodite and have intercourse with some stranger once in her life. This mandate, he claimed, transcended class barriers. Noble women and commoners alike donned wreaths of cord upon their heads, seating themselves in the temple precincts amid throngs of similarly adorned females, their garments parted to expose thighs marked by ritual tattoos symbolizing devotion, as men prowled the aisles, tossing silver coins into laps to claim their chosen vessel. The transaction sealed, not in private chambers, but often in open view, the woman's body yielding to the intruder's rough grasp, while priests intoned hymns to drown out any protests, the coins clink echoing as a sacred donation that allegedly fueled the goddess's favor. Corroborating fragments emerge from Mesopotamian clay tablets unearthed in sites like Uruk and Nippur, inscribed in wedge-shaped cuneiform that preserved administrative records and religious texts from as early as the 3rd millennium before the Common Era, detailing classes of women known as Kadishtu, translated variably as holy women or consecrated ones, who inhabited temple complexes, their roles intertwining spiritual duties with what scholars interpret as ritual intercourse, aimed at channeling divine energy for communal prosperity, though debates rage among modern historians like Stephanie Boudin, who in her work The Myth of Sacred Prostitution in Antiquity argues these interpretations stem from biased Greek sources rather than indigenous evidence. Yet the tablets' listings of temple servants receiving rations alongside explicit hymns praising Inanna's sweet vulva suggest a culture where sexuality was inextricably linked to the sacred. Escalating beyond this purported universal obligation, the temples maintained dedicated cadres of sacred prostitutes, both female and male, whose existence revolved around perpetual availability for carnal worship. These Naditu and Intu priestesses, often recruited from elite families or ensnared slaves, underwent meticulous preparations that stripped away personal identity, their bodies shaved bare from head to pubis in rites of purification, anointed with viscous oils extracted from cedar resin and frankincense that left skin glistening under lamplight, only to be mounted by pilgrims in public alcoves. The acts unfolding before audiences who believed witnessing amplified the ritual's potency. The priestess's moans, scripted to invoke rain upon parched fields, her inner walls contracting around successive intruders whose semen was deemed a holy libation, pooling on altars etched with fertility symbols. A preserved cylinder seal from the Akkadian period, circa 2334 to 2154 before the Common Era, depicts such a scene in miniature bas-relief. A robed figure, likely a priestess, reclining on a couch while a bearded man approaches, his erect phallus prominently carved, surrounded by symbols of Ishtar's star and lion. Artifacts like this unearthed from temple ruins at Kish and Lagash, providing tangible echoes of these practices, where the seal's impression on clay documents might have authenticated. Ritual transactions, the cold stone bearing witness to the heat of bodies entangled in divine command. The hieros gamos, or sacred marriage, elevated these rites to a pinnacle of royal involvement, an annual spectacle atop the ziggurat during the Akitu festival marking the new year, where the king embodied Dumuzi, Ishtar's mythical consort, ascending spiral ramps under a canopy of stars that seemed to pulse with anticipatory fervor. Clad in embroidered robes heavy with gold threads illustrating copulating beasts, the monarch would enter the uppermost shrine to unite with the high priestess, her form incarnating the goddess, their coupling vigorous and prolonged, thrusts mimicking the plow furrowing earth, observed by a select cadre of courtiers whose presence sanctified the act, the priestess's cries echoing down the tiers as seminal fluid mingled with her arousal, believed to ensure the land's renewal, yet often leaving her bruised and depleted from the king's unbridled exertion. In Hedjona, the daughter of Sargon of Akkad and the earliest known author in history, served as high priestess of Inanna at Uar around 2285 before the Common Era, her extant hymns preserved on clay tablets extolling the goddess's erotic dominion. Bridegroom, let me caress you. My precious caress is more savory than honey. Lines that veil the visceral demands placed upon her, potentially including participation in these unions. Her poetic exaltations of the vulva full of sweetness, like the land contrasting with the private toll of repeated enactments, where dissociation might have fractured the psyche, in Hedjwana's own exile and restoration mirroring the goddess's descent to the underworld, a narrative perhaps born from personal anguish amid ritual obligations. During festivals such as the Akitu, spanning 11 days of revelry, the boundaries dissolved into orgiastic chaos. Intoxicated crowds, fueled by date palm, wine infused with hallucinogenic herbs like mandrake, converged on temple grounds, stripping away garments in a frenzy of group copulations, bodies slick with perspiration and ejaculate intertwining on reed mats stained with the sharp, coppery scent of menstrual blood ritually incorporated to symbolize fertility, the air throbbing with drums. And lyres as participants emulated Ishtar's dual essence, love morphing into warlike aggression in bites and scratches that drew crimson rivulets, all purportedly to placate the goddess's whims and avert famine or invasion. Shocking inclusions extended to male sacred prostitutes, the Asinu and Korguru, effeminate figures donning women's attire, flowing skirts and veils adorned with beads, who performed in Ishtar's cults, submitting to anal penetration by male devotees in rituals balancing cosmic polarities, their orifices prepared with lubricating salves of animal fat and herbs, yet often suffering rectal fissures and infections. As medical texts from Nineveh describe treatments for wounds of the anus, using poultices of tamarisk bark and salt crystals ground into paste that stung upon application. These men's social marginalization compounding the physical agony. Medieval commentators later labeling them sodomites in disdainful glosses on ancient records. The Code of Hammurabi, promulgated around 1750 before the Common Era and inscribed on a towering diorite stele, now housed in the Louvre, outlined legal frameworks that indirectly illuminated these practices. Paragraphs 178 to 182 afforded nada to women. Temple dedicants forbidden marriage but allowed inheritance. Protections against disinheritance, suggesting their services generated wealth. Yet penalties for refusal were severe, including flogging with scorpion-tipped whips that lacerated flesh. In public displays, blood spraying in arcs as crowds jeered. While infractions like adultery among ritual participants warranted drowning, the condemned bound in pairs and hurled into the Euphrates' turbid depths, their final gasps bubbling up as the current claimed them in a macabre embrace. Psychological ramifications, viewed through contemporary lenses of trauma theory, reveal layers of hidden torment. Priestesses, exalted yet objectified, likely manifested dissociative states, their minds splintering under incessant invasions, as evoked in lamentation texts where women bewail the shattering of the inner sanctum, a poignant metaphor for violated psyches. Paranoia, festering as rumors of their impurity circulated, leading to isolation within temple confines, their once vital forms withering from chronic stress that mimicked the demonic possessions described in incantations, exorcisms involving fumigations with sulfurous herbs that choked the air and induced visions of tormenting spirits. Political consequences rippled outward, intertwining private dysfunctions with public affairs. Kings like Hammurabi leveraged these rights to legitimize rule, claiming divine endorsement through sexual prowess. Yet scandals erupted when excesses drained treasuries, funding lavish temple orgies amid droughts attributed to insufficient devotion, inciting peasant uprisings where farmers, burdened by taxes to support priestly classes, stormed ziggurats with pitchforks, their fury fueled by whispers of royal impotence exposed in failed hieros gamos, such as during Nabonidus's reign in the 6th century before the Common Era, when reforms attempted to curtail rituals amid accusations of corruption, ultimately contributing to the empire's fall to Persian invaders under Cyrus the Great, who capitalized on internal discord sown by these intimate failings. Collateral suffering extended to families and society. Husbands of women fulfilling the one-time mandate endured cuckoldry sanctified by faith, their jealousy festering into domestic violence chronicled in legal petitions for divorce. Children conceived in temple encounters often consecrated back to service, perpetuating cycles of exploitation. Their lineage is shadowed by illegitimacy that bred paranoia among nobility, courtiers vying for favor through denouncing rivals' tainted offspring. Isolation gripping households as suspicions of ritual infidelity poisoned relationships. The broader populace bearing the brunt through epidemics potentially spread via these communal acts. Venereal plagues ravaging communities without understanding of transmission. As empires evolved, conditions intensified. In the Neo-Babylonian period, priestesses turned to desperate abortifacients like silphium extracts ingested in bitter draughts that induced violent cramps and hemorrhagic discharges, leaving uteruses scarred and infertile in ironic defiance of their fertility mandate, while fringe sects incorporated bestiality. Devotees coupling with sacred bulls symbolizing Anu, cylinder seals from peripheral sites depicting humans in congress with animals, acts, eliciting revulsion even from core Babylonian chroniclers who omitted them from official annals. Paranoia, escalated among the elite. High priestesses, concealing syphilitic chancres, grotesque, festering sores blooming on genitals like malignant flowers, retreated to inner sanctums, their bodies wasting under mercury-based treatments that induced tremors and madness, anatomical deformities interpreted as omens of doom in divinatory texts, isolation deepening as attendants whispered of curses. The once powerful figures reduced to shadows, haunting marble halls, their minds unraveling in delusions of divine retribution. Death scenes underscored the ultimate collapse. Many succumbed to postpartum hemorrhages following ritual births, torrents of blood soaking birthing stools as midwives chanted futile incantations, autopsies conducted in secrecy revealing malformed organs attributed to excessive use, historical sanitization evident in Neo-Babylonian chronicles that glorify Ishtar's temples while excising graphic details, preserved evidence lingering in artifacts like terracotta vulva votives from Kish, molded, with exaggerated labia dripping symbolic fluids, or Nippur tablets inventorying oils for anointing sacred loins, stark testaments to center realities. Circling back to that shadowed sanctum where you stood amid the writhing masses, the atmosphere choked with decay and desire. We now perceive it as a tragic intersection of authority and human vulnerability, where deities exacted tributes that corroded the spirit, these ancient perversions resonating in modern echoes of exploitative cults veiling abuse and sanctity, underscoring enduring horrors of domination and submission. Broader themes emerge. The fragility of power when undermined by intimate frailties, the universality of hidden truths that bind past to present, modern parallels in coercive systems masquerading as voluntary, reminding that curiosity about history unveils not just facts, but cautionary specters of humanity's darker impulses. In conclusion, Babylon's temples endure as spectral relics, their crumbled bricks whispering of flesh fractured on faith's unforgiving altars, a haunting finale with Ishtar's fractured idol gazing over desolate sands, where echoes of coerced rapture fade into eternal silence.